Hello, this is Harriet Behar, Senior Organic Specialist with the Midwest Organic and Sustainable Education Service, otherwise known as MOSES. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a book that we have put together, funded by the USDA Risk Management Agency, helping you keep records for both organic certification and crop insurance in one easy set of worksheets. First of all, for those of you who are certified organic, and even those who are not, it's important to know that record keeping is a very important aspect of certified organic production. Management decisions are based on your own historical reference and knowledge. Organic certification requires good records, not only so the organic inspector can verify that you are doing acceptable activities on your farm, but also so that those records represent a functioning organic system. Organic farming relies heavily on good management rather than synthetic inputs. For organic certification and for crop insurance, you can actually get either or both of those on a field-by-field basis. There's no need to have the whole farm be certified organic. Or you can just have just one crop be covered by crop insurance and your other enterprises not. So there's a similarity there. There is a type of whole farm revenue protection, crop insurance, which does cover the entire farm, but that's a choice that you would make if you wanted to have that type of crop insurance. As an organic inspector and as the organic senior specialist at MOSES, I was really struck by how much of the documentation requirements are the same between organic certification and crop insurance. If you have a claim that you from crop insurance, you had hail or drought, you have to be able to show your crop insurance adjuster that you did your due diligence in growing that crop. So you'll have to keep track of the date that you planted, if you used any fertility inputs, any pest or disease management, weed management, all those things. And of course, your storage and sales, if something would have happened, let's say, once your crop is in storage. And for organic certification, you have to do the same. They want to know when you applied manure, because there's a lot of detail in the organic regulations that kind of cover what can be used and when. So there's a lot that's very similar, and rather than having two separate records for organic certification and crop insurance, we thought here at MOSES that we would put them together in one set of easy crop templates for you to use. So in organic, you'll need to demonstrate that you comply with the organic rules as far as having buffer zones and, like I said before, your manure applications, that your fertility inputs are allowed, and that if you're using micronutrients, that you had a documented need for that with soil testing or monitoring, whatever shows that there's a need for that. And then crop insurance also wants to know what crops you're growing in which fields, which is the same with organic, so you can show your crop rotation from year to year. However, in crop insurance, there is one little extra wrinkle in that on the conventional side, they're not really tracking it so much on the organic production, but on the conventional side, crop insurance agents actually have access to a database that shows the average yield for every quarter section of land in the United States that is listed with the Farm Service Agency as growing crops. So they can track and see if the yields that you are projecting are within that average for that tract of land that you're using. So the workbook, which I will get to soon, you'll see some pages there, can be very helpful, especially for the first year people, if you start using it during your transition years, in helping you fill out your organic certification application, which is also known as the Organic System Plan. You have to be able to show that you did not use any prohibited herbicides, fertilizers, or fungicides or insecticides for at least 3 years prior to your first organic harvest. So that's 36 months between the application of something prohibited and your first organic harvest. So in your first year, you'll have to fill out that 3-year field history. Every field, how many acres it was, if it was, what crop it was, what seed you planted, what kind of inputs you used, and then for your actual year of production. So in subsequent years, they won't always ask you for 3 years because they'll have that on file. They'll just ask you for that 1 year that you're currently doing. So helping you fill out that application, having all that information in one place is going to make filling out that 15, 16-page application a lot easier. So this workbook that we've created is going to help you have, as I said, not have 2 sets of records. You can keep both sets together in one easy place. And also I want to stress too that this historical perspective is going to help you figure out how late you can plant a crop and still get a crop, because you're going to have all those planting dates. It's going to help you see which type of fertility inputs gave you the most bang for your buck. It's going to help you figure out what type of crops are giving you the best yields, and especially too on which type of fields. Every farm is not always uniform. You could have some fields that are more sandy, others that are more silty, maybe a bottomland field that could give you a better yield, and you might end up developing different crop rotations for each field and having some records of what your yields are for which crop when they're in those different fields will help you with the development of those crop rotations to keep your operation more economically viable. Another benefit of good records is having kind of an economic safety net if things don't go as well as planned. If for some reason you did have a drift incident from a neighbor who drifted a prohibited substance onto your organic land, having the records of what your yields have been, what crops you've grown, what your crop rotation is for that field will help you work with the insurance agent to get a better settlement for the damages that you suffered. So the crop insurance that's covered in this book is basically everything that you can get as an organic producer or even a conventional producer. It covers the multi-peril individual commodity crop insurance. It will help you if you do decide to get that organic price election under that commodity insurance, or if you have a contract price addendum basically insuring your crop to the contract price that you've received, as well as for whole farm revenue protection crop insurance. And it has the extra added benefit of having all of your crop, farm, and farm records all in one place, including the records you need to keep for your taxes, your Schedule F. So we're helping you with that as well. Just so you know as well that these records are downloadable, and at the end of this webinar there'll be a website where you can go as Excel spreadsheets, as well as contacting the Moses office, and we will mail you a hard copy for free. So, as I said, whole farm revenue protection crop insurance is heavily reliant on the Schedule F, And so we have all the expenses and income listed out with some explanation of what's expected to go in each of these lines. So even if you're doing your own taxes, or you give it to a preparer that you pay to help you, or you've got your uncle helping you, this will help them because all of your information will be in one place and things will go faster. So if you did need to file a claim for drought or flood or hail, you need to be able to prove that you did your best to actually grow the crop. And so these field activity logs are invaluable in giving to the crop insurance adjuster to show when you planted, what you did, any tillage you would have done, weed control, pest management. That's what they need to see. And if you were developing this documentation from scratch, that would be a daunting task to really try to figure out what they're looking for. So we did it for you. So starting out, we have a document on your field locations. And as I said, there are some databases out there that help the crop insurance adjuster see what the average yields are for that soil type in that region. And so they'll want to know exactly where your field locations are. But of course, once you do this, it's done. And the organic certification paperwork asks for the same information. And you notice it could be actually an address, or a section number, or even GPS coordinates, which are not mandatory, but for those of you who have that information, you can put it in there, and then once it's done, it's done. Just another point to make too is in the hard copy book that we will send you, there's 2 copies at least of each item. So if you like using it, you will have then a blank copy that you can photocopy to make more, or you can go to our website and download it. The next item is this crop rotation and input history for 5 years. So you can kind of tell that there's kind of darker colors for each year. So we have the field number, and for those of you that are specialty crop growers, you could have a row or a bed. How many acres or row feet, if you own or rent it. This is information that the organic and the crop insurance people both want to know. Then what year it is. Is it organic, transitional, or conventional? That's what the OTC means. There it is up on top. And then the crop that you're growing, and then any inputs or cover crops. Now, it's not a very big space, so you can either use the Excel spreadsheet or write really small, or you can just use this type of template and make your own, but you can see here what the important information is. The next item is the field activity log, and this is kind of the heart of this workbook, that most certifiers do not give you any sort of information, or crop insurance agencies, of what they're looking for. But we found that out, and we're providing that to you. So you start out with a crop year, and what's interesting here too is you can track. This is by either you can do it by field or you can do it by crop, however you feel most comfortable. And then you can have the various years. You can have 5 years, and so you can see what you're doing in each field, or by crop. So if you're growing corn, and you always have the same sort of amendments and manures or whatever, you can do it by crop, or you can do it by field. So it covers the cover crop used, your tillage, your soil amendments, and then you can track too. Oh, I put lime on in 2016, probably won't need that for a little while. But if you're putting on manure and you're growing a crop that is a heavy feeder, you may end up using it, every other year or whatever. So you can kind of help you track what you're putting on when. And I don't know who's listening to this, but I know that I can't always remember what I did in my fields 5 years previous. I have to go back to my field activity logs. Keeping track of the planting dates, the seed varieties, the rate of seeding, any monitoring that you did if you had certain weeds or pests, what the crop vigor was like, is all going to help you figure out on an economic plane if you are doing the right thing, if what you purchased was worthwhile, what worked well for what crop in what fields. It's all very important information to have you be a better manager and do a better job with your organic farming operation. So all these other items, where you're storing the crop, what equipment you used, and if you cleaned it and how. And then, of course, don't forget that once you've removed the crop, you might be planting a cover crop. And hopefully you can figure out how to do that, because that's a great practice for the health of your soil. Next is kind of just a list. These are not the actual items, but just the documentation that you will need to have in place, and it just kind of helps you check it off. So when the inspector comes or when the crop insurance adjuster comes, that you would have it. So do you have a map for every field? And you could just check it. You have the year up here, and then you can check it, what you had, what you didn't have. If it's a new field to you, did you get a prior land use affidavit showing that nothing prohibited had been on there for at least 3 years? For seed, do you have your invoices and your tags and your bags so the inspector can see them? Obviously, you need your field activity log, which we just went over. Do you have soil tests? If you've been using soil amendments, you'll have to have them, but it's just a good practice to see if you are headed in the right direction with your nutrient levels and your organic matter levels, to do soil tests periodically. And again, keeping track, oh yeah, I did soil tests in 2011, maybe, and here it is now, 2017, maybe I should start thinking about doing another set of soil tests. So having this 5-year record is very useful. If you had issues possibly with adjoining land use, if the neighbor says they don't spray, then you won't need a buffer. If you did need a buffer, did you keep track of a separate harvest from there, if you harvested hay or a crop from there? So there's just lots of things here that kind of help you just check off that you've put the records in place that you needed. So we do provide you here with a storage record. There's a lot of places and certifiers, and obviously the crop insurance people don't give you these. Just a running inventory of when you put it in, what crop it was, estimate of the bushels or pounds, where it came from, and then the out estimate, how much you took out when you made a sale, how much was shipped, and then how much is left in balance in storage. So this is a kind of very useful record to keep track of what you have and when you sold it, and you can see then how many bushels or pounds, or however you're tracking cases, or if it's a vegetable grower, of onions or some other storage crop, how much each field produced for you. So that's, again, very interesting information when you're making long-term crop production management decisions. This is a sales record. Again, the certifiers don't usually provide this. And both the storage and sales information is very important, especially if you are applying for whole farm revenue protection insurance. They'll want to know if you have any crop in storage from the previous year. They'll want to have some information on your sales and when you sell, kind of your cash flow. So these items will be helping you with that because it's got date and it's got amounts. And here you're keeping track of who the buyer was. You might end up selling your crop to a variety of different buyers. You can then keep track of who gave you the best price. Of course, it might be tied to the time of year that you're selling it. So all this information will be here for you. And on the top, we have kind of an example of what a lot number could be. You don't have to follow this exactly, but you should have some of this information in your lot number to kind of have a unique number for each sale activity that you have. And so it's always nice to track it back to the field or to the bin that it came from, the year of production, and some other items. So it could have your initials or the name of the crop, whatever you want. But every lot number should be unique. The lot number 1 is not unique to you if every farmer puts the first shipment that they had from their farm as lot number 1. We would never be able to track anything. So we're looking to have some kind of unique information in there that can really tie it back to you, to your field, to the storage location, and to the tracking from the field, which would then track everything that you did in that field, your inputs, your tillage activities, etc. So this is actually something that maybe the crop insurance people would be more interested in, but it's definitely something your banker would be interested in if you were going to apply for an operating loan. So these are just keeping track of your costs and your income. And this is a 5-year planning worksheet. Again, this would be useful for whole farm revenue protection insurance. This is not something necessarily that the organic certification looks at. But of course, if you're a farmer, you should be looking at your records to help you with the economic viability of your operation. And so this is meant by crop. So it's kind of like a crop enterprise budget, which is, like I said, useful for planning. And it is something that Whole Farm Revenue Protection will be asking you some questions that you will then be referring back to this document to help you answer when you are applying for that crop insurance. And then lastly, we have the income worksheet and expense sheet for Schedule F. So these are the categories that you need to complete in order to complete your Schedule F on an annual basis. There is some explanation of what they're looking for to kind of help you. Sometimes looking at those IRS forms can be a little bit confusing. So we're trying to help you figure that out and kind of keep track of things that you're buying and the dollar amount, and then help you figure out what your gross income might be. The same goes for the expenses, and so we tried to kind of explain here what they're looking for in these different categories: car and truck expenses, employee benefit program, feed, fertilizers, and lime. Some of it is somewhat self-explanatory, but others we did go through the IRS booklet and make sure that we were giving you the right information of where to categorize what expense. And there's another page of that, so there's quite a bit. And when you do, if you do apply for Whole Farm Revenue Protection, you do need to have this filled out as well. They'll ask you for this because this is part of what your expense is, right? You get your gross income by looking at income minus expenses. So to sum up, don't be intimidated by record keeping. Truthfully, some of the gold that you produce on the farm are your records because they really help you pay for themselves over time by giving you the historical reference that you need to do a good job on your farm and make good management decisions. So make it a habit to jot down your activities through the season. And that is the end. If you need to get these items on the website, feel free to go to that link that we have here or to the Moses website and look under publications, and you'll find it. And I encourage you all to do a great job with your records and have a good day. Bye-bye.